We are now recording. So I have just a few questions to ask you today. First, could you say your name and what you do?
My name is Alicia McCullen, and I work with autistic kids at a company called Center for Autism Related Disorders, better known as CARD.
Okay. So the first question they have is discuss the characteristics of the individuals with exponent whom you discuss the characteristics of individuals with whom you serve, including gifted as well as those with disabilities.
Can you try to reword that question?
Let me share my screen. These are all the questions right here.
It's way too
Or
small.
right here. Sorry.
It's way too small for me to see, but that's okay.
Hmm?
It's too small for me to see.
Oh. Just these. Here and up.
Characteristics of the individual with exceptionalities whom you serve, including gifted as well as those with disabilities. All right. So basically, the individuals I work with have autism, and at my company, it can be anywhere from a kiddo that is low functioning to the point where like they can't use the restroom with themselves, they don't talk, they communicate through a picture system, or they don't really communicate at all outside of sounds. Or they can be as high as functioning where we're only working on social skills, meaning like how to properly hold small talk, how to express your emotions when you're frustrated. And it could be safety awareness. So when we talk about, it's called shades of gray. So like one of the questions that we work on with our older kids is like, if your coach asked you to come over to his house alone, would you go? And the answer should be no. And then we would ask the follow-up question, if your coach invites you over to his house with the whole team, would you go? And the answer should be maybe. And then the kid would be like, because I need to ask my parents or something like that. And so it's like differentiating like why certain situations are okay and some aren't, and it's about like picking out the differences and stuff, which is like harder for them. So it's like that's the scale of like what we do.
Yeah, because with autism, like they're big at least for very high functioning, one of the main issues is not being able to pick up like social cues and like knowing the difference between right and wrong in certain situations. Is that about right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. This sounds like a really cool job, honestly. I don't think I could do it though. I think I would not be that great at it, but I guess as a teacher, I'm probably gonna end up having autistic students at some point with high functioning. And
A lot of kiddos, I say kiddos for like all ages, it could be any age. They go to like a special school specifically for people with disabilities, but there are some of my kiddos that go to mainstream schools and they're in mainstream classrooms and stuff, so it is pretty common.
Could you describe the second question for me? Could you describe the education, developmental, and medical services available for individuals with disability in your district?
I'm not sure about my district, but I do know like what's available to my specific kiddos in Tempe.
Okay.
Uh, a lot of them have speech therapy. A lot of them have their ABA therapy, which is what I do. And then some of them have physical therapy. Like one of my kiddos, she has to wear braces on her legs because of like how she walked as a child. Well, she is still a child, but like how she walked as like a toddler. A lot of kids with autism like walk on their toes, and if they do it for too long, it can really mess up like how their muscles develop, how their bones are structured, and stuff like that. So she has to wear braces like I think 70% of the time just to help straighten it out as much as possible.
Is it like the braces that you see Forrest Gump wear type thing, or is it a bit different?
Um, it's from her knee down, and kind of, but they're like hard plastic, not metal.
Okay. All right. I'm just imagining like braces on the knee, and I imagine just Forrest Gump as a child. So I was just wondering if it's like the same kind of same situation because I know basically because of how you walk and stuff, it can actually affect your entire spine.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And what medical services were provided, just with your students in Tempe that you know?
Um, I mean, I know they needed assessments and things before they can even come to us, so they had to have been in some type of medical environment because they have to take there's like 3 different autism exams or assessments that you can take specifically, and then it has to be diagnosed by a doctor, and then once they get the diagnosis, then they can go to like ABA companies, and then ABA companies will do an assessment on them on basically how many hours the BCBA predicts they will need. And that goes to insurance companies. The insurance companies read the report. They deem, this is cool, but this is not cool, but that's okay. But sure, but we're only going to give them 15 hours instead of 30 hours because we don't want to pay for that. And so they'll deem how many hours they're actually going to get based on the report. And this is like per week. Some of them are per month and some of them per every 3 months. But usually it's like they can have this many a week and they can have this many total a month. And then authorizations, which is like the insurance authorizations, usually are every 3 months. So it can change every 3 months.
Or that's fascinating. Are you aware of the IEP process?
Yes. I had a lot of friends in high school that had one.
Huh?
I had a lot of friends in high school that had them.
Do you know if like you yourself are involved in any of the IEP process as someone who, since you work with autistic children, they themselves would have some sort of IEP process?
I personally do not do it, but our BCBAs, which is like the people that create the programs at my job that are like do the therapy. So they don't really do the therapy, but they create what I would implement. They, I believe, are part of it. So they sometimes go to the schools and communicate with the teachers, and I believe they help develop the IEP. If not, they definitely have an input if they're not like fully hands-on, you know? But they do go to the schools, they do check in, they talk to the teachers, they make sure everything's going good. And if there's any adjustments or potentially a need of a therapist within the school, just to like help out if it's going like not great.
So you would say that you may not be like yourself directly in the meeting, but like what you would write down happen that day, what you feel needs to happen would be given to the person who is, and they would talk about these things that need to be implemented or decide what changes need to be done based on your results for when the person works with you.
Yeah, exactly. So like I'm with the kid every single day basically for multiple hours a day in theory. I mean, that's not every kid, but the BCBA is only there about 30% of the time. And that's through across all therapists. That's not 30% of my therapy time. That's 30% of the child's therapy time.
Mm-hmm.
So they only witness so much. They really heavily go off of notes, off of communication. If you notice something that's completely different than normal, you need to communicate that to the BCBA so therefore they can make changes. If you don't communicate it and you don't put it in notes, nothing's ever going to get changed. So like documentation is a really big part of like what's going on.
If you don't mind me asking, how do you give me a description of how you support the families of the people with disabilities outside of helping their individual children?
So I personally don't do parent trainings. Usually the BCBAs or the lead therapists with like extra training, they will do those. But we do offer parent trainings, and they are most of the time required. Just because a lot of our parents don't really know what to do or are implementing what they would normally do with a normal child, like spanking and reprimanding and stuff like that. And that does not work with autistic children because they don't understand why they're being hit or like why they're being reprimanded fully. Like we still have consequences, obviously, but like it has to directly pertain to what they did. And if it doesn't, they're absolutely not going to understand why they're getting in trouble. So our BCBAs and our BTLs will do either in-house parent trainings or Zoom parent trainings, and they will discuss all of that. They will teach them how to do the correct things. If it involves like doing lessons, I remember during COVID when therapists couldn't really come into the homes and it was all like Zoom sessions. There was so much parent training going on there because the parents had to run the lessons basically. And so that was like a lot of different times,
I imagine that must have been really hard. But that you came before that, was after all that, huh?
I came in right at the end of it. I didn't have to do Zoom meetings, but I did have to do a lot of home sessions because the center wasn't open at that point.
Okay.
And home sessions are a little bit different.
So for the next question, I'd like you to kind of explain the process of how you're addressing the behavioral issues of these students with their disabilities. Also, if you don't mind me asking, I should have asked you this before, but do you have, I know you deal with usually students with autism, but do you have any students who not only have autism but other disabilities as well?
Yeah, so a lot of kiddos that we have also have ADHD or like other mental disabilities. I know it's not like a learning disability or anything. Some of the older kiddos struggle with mental health just because of like making friends and like being different, and especially our higher functioning kiddos where they are able to understand like when kids are making fun of them and they're like able to connect with that, but then they still are having a hard time making friends. It makes it very hard for them because they understand what's going on, but they can't really fix the issue, and it can get pretty hard for them. ADHD is very common to be similar with autism. But outside of that, I can't really think. Oh, OCD. OCD is also very common with people with autism. I would say like out of all my kiddos, probably a third of them have OCD.
Now, did you say one of the common things you guys do is you'll have something organized the way they like it, and then you would mess with it just a little bit just to get that reaction and try to get them to just accept that it was changed for a little bit or something like that?
We do it. I wouldn't say it's like officially part of their program, but there are lessons on like emotional control, and I would use that for their emotional control lessons, but only for certain kiddos. It depends on what level they're at. Like one of my kiddos, he really liked his cups at his house. He had like cups for each family member. Since he had a really big family, they had like assigned cups, and he had to have them turned a certain way, and he had to have the lids closed. They're like tumblers, and he's not supposed to touch his family members' cups. He's only supposed to touch his cups. But if another person's cup was turned in a different direction, or if it was open, he would like literally have to go fix it. And so sometimes I would like purposely turn a cup or purposely open one. just to be like, okay, bud, like, I know this, how I like, tell me how this makes you feel, like, what's going on, are we able to leave it, or we need to go ask our parents or our brother or sister or whoever permission to go touch their cup. Like, so you have to make it like a functional way. He can't just walk over and start touching other people's stuff. So he has to like make it an okay behavior.
Um, Back to the question. I want to know what is your way of handling behavioral issues with the children with disabilities, like from a small scale to like the big scale behavioral issue. Like, what's your guys' game plan in handling those things when they happen?
Well, we have multiple different things. So like for prevention of behaviors, we do first then statements. So like, first we're gonna do this, then you can have that. Or first we're gonna do this lesson, then you can have your snack or your favorite food, or we can go play.
So a lot of
Um,
positive reinforcement for the smaller stuff for
yeah.
the first goal.
So, but they still have to earn it. Like it's all
Yeah.
about earning it. We use a lot of token economies. I don't know if you guys learned of that. It's basically like you answer a question, you get a token, and then eventually it fades to you answer all the questions, you get a token, and like once you get so many tokens, you get like your reward. Um, those are great, but they can become dependent on it, meaning they will not do the behavior unless they're getting tokens. So it's not a long-term solution, but you can do it, especially with the younger kiddos. It works really well. When it comes to like more I wouldn't say extreme behaviors, but a little bit tougher behaviors. Like a lot of my kiddos have self-injurious behaviors when they get upset, or they become aggressive to their therapist or other kiddos around them. You have to be a little bit careful. We are taught aggressive behavior management at my job, especially if you have an aggressive kiddo. Basically, you need to make sure that the child is safe and you are safe as well. I personally like to make sure the child's safe first. Like I am older, I can heal, it's whatever, they're tiny, there's only so much damage they can do. But if they're slamming their head into the floor or building their head against the wall, I want to make sure that their head is fine. If he has to bump his head into my arm, it's fine until I can get a blocking pad. I'm not about to go reach for a blocking pad and have him continually hit his head into the wall. But other people believe differently just because their own personal safety, and I understand that, but I'm there for the kiddos. So when it comes to very aggressive behaviors, say like I place a demand, say take a bite of your food, and it's a food they do not want. It's a non-preferred item, but it's still a demand. And once we place a demand in ABA, we have to follow through. So if I out of your food and he starts flopping on the floor crying and like tantruming and trying to like hit me or throw chairs or whatever, this is kind of an extreme example, but it happens all the time. Basically, we will get him back up, sit him back in the chair, be like, all right, bud, take a bite. And we will continually follow through and not give attention to the tantrum until he takes a bite. Once he takes a bite, we give him all the praise in the world. Literally, like, make it the hugest deal in the world. And then it will kind of like reset them and they'll be like, oh, they liked it when I took a bite. And then hopefully they'll take more bites. And basically during that time of the tantrum, be like, oh, do you want to go play? And they're like, play? And then I'm like, yeah, so take a bite and then we can go play. So you like still make them earn it, but you remind them what they're working for. Because if you forget what you're working for, they're not likely to finish it.
All right. So next is more about your position. It's about like when you were working, what were like some policies you had to follow, services, educational strategies, and could you like discuss like if there's anything specific like in your training that related to confidentiality, including who leads the training and how often is it like your training required? Like, do you have to do more training every so often?
Yeah. So I was a trainer, and we do talk about confidentiality a lot. There's like a whole day of HIPAA and all the rules behind that and confidentiality, and like all the rules, like the double locking, and if a parent comes into the clinic, all the kids need to be specifically in their rooms because of HIPAA and confidentiality. Um, so we do learn about that, and then like when it comes to like training on like specific things, we do every month at our staff meeting. They would have a training on like a specific topic, and it would change each month. So we are still being like actively trained and like refreshed. But as like a trainer for the initial training for like the new recruits, it's over a week long. And it's about 6 to 8 hours per day. And the first like 3 hours are videos / Zoom meetings where you like interact with all the other new people and then a trainer. And then you go into some type of like role play scenario where you implement it on like other trainers or other orientation people. And then after that, you implement it on a child. So I would be the trainer. I was the person that trained with the children. Basically, they would come in. I'd be like, okay, we're working on rapport today. So that just means that you need to become the child's new best friend. And you need to set up a big rapport so that when you place demands, they're going to want to do it. So if you just walk in and start shouting out demands, they're going to be like, no, I don't know you. I don't like you. And then they're going to associate you with something bad. So you need to partner yourself with something good for them to be able to want to do it.
Okay.
And at that point, like I would model, and then I would have them try. And if they need help, I would give verbal instructions. And then at that point, like the next time they would try, if anything, I would like gesture to be like, oh, don't forget that, you know? And then like you kind of like phase out the prompting, just like you would with our kids, you would do it with the trainees.
All right. Last question, and I don't know if this question really applies to, but we'll try. Can you discuss what you do to stay current on special educational law?
I would say the more specific things that we stayed current on and like actively were looking at was like new ABA research and like stuff like that, and laws or policies and laws about like aggressive behavior management. It's like some holds that were okay like 3 years ago are no longer okay, and they gave us alternative holds and stuff like that. And so if someone hasn't gotten the new training, that'd be an issue, because if a situation occurred and they put a kid in a hold that's not allowed, that could be a lawsuit, that could be safety of a child issue. Like there could be so many different things. So like keeping current on that is really important. Is like if you're at the company for 4 years, the training that you had when you first started is not going to be the same to today.
It's really good to know that the training is constantly being updated for the betterment of the people there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's all the questions. Thank you so much for the interview, and I appreciate you answering my questions.
Sure. Thank you.